Hello and welcome to the PowerSwitch, gaming's call-in talk radio show. My name is Peter Spezia, and today is May 13th, 2017. This is the 25th episode of the podcast. Thank you for tuning in. We use Discord as a means to add and drop callers to talk about video games and switch the power that is found in a typical gaming podcast. You can join our server to participate during recordings at rhymeswithasia.com/call. Oh, it's good to be back. I'm sorry I had to call off on last week's show, but it's really good to be back. Let's see, what I've been playing recently. I've been playing some Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Went through the 50cc, kind of breezed through that really, just, getting all of those gold trophies. Probably about halfway through the 100cc right now. I know I'm not a pro like you. I don't start on 150 and then see if 200 tests my medal or anything like that, but you just gotta go and make some good progression there. And then I started Nier Automata today. That was some good fun. Probably about 5 hours in, doing some side quest stuff before going underground for that main mission in the story. If you've played it, you're familiar with that. But yeah, liking it so far. It's just been sitting on the shelf for a while through GameFly, just before Persona 5 came in. And so it's been sitting there for a while. Got to get to it. Speaking of Persona 5, do check out our spoiler cast over on YouTube at Rhymes with Asia or on podcast services. Had a lot of fun recording that. That was a good time. Came together well for a nice edit. So check that out if you've beaten Persona 5. Really do recommend that. But it's important to talk about on the show this week with our main topic because we're less than a month away from E3 2017, and that's really exciting. So I kind of wanted to first run down the list of kind of where all of the current conferences are slated, then kind of talk about our E3 2017 contest, and then the questions, the predictive questions that are associated with that. So kind of just want to run through things quickly. Then we'll get to the callers and, the show, kind of what's special about the show really is, getting to the callers and having you talk about whatever you'd like to about video games. But we're going to start with E3 2017. And let's talk about those conferences. It starts on Saturday of the week this year, of all things, and that's unusual, but that's when EA has their press conference, Saturday, June 10th at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. Then we go to Sunday, and Microsoft mixing up a bit. Usually they're first on the Monday. They want to separate themselves from Sony, so they're on the Sunday this year, Sunday, June 11th at 5 p.m. Eastern Time for Microsoft. Bethesda confirmed locked in for that Sunday as well, 10 p.m. Eastern Time. Then Ubisoft hasn't confirmed anything. But granted, we are still a month out. That could easily change over the coming week. They could confirm a time. If they keep to how, the trends have been for the past years, and, right now, it would be Monday, June 12th at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. And that still kind of gives them a good bubble of time, just kind of right in the middle of nowhere. That's how it's been for past years, not confirmed yet. I would imagine, though, if they're going to have a press conference, you got to imagine that they would. It's not like Vivendi's taking over somehow before then. But if Ubisoft does have a conference, I would imagine it'd be Monday, June 12th, 4 p.m. Eastern Time. And then that leaves Sony on that Monday night, as they usually are, confirmed, locked in, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. So Sunday and Monday nights, some late shows on the East Coast, but it works out well for Pacific Time, I suppose. But I'm sorry, Europe. Those are some late nights. Now, Nintendo also confirmed for Tuesday at noon Eastern Time on June 13th, doing a spotlight. Not sure how it differs from a Nintendo Direct or anything like that. It's going to be a Direct, essentially. They'll have their, Treehouse Live sort of set up after, and that'll be fine. So I'd like to talk about our E3 2017 contest. And if you've listened to Podcast Pass, Show Me Your News, for example, I kind of run this contest pretty similarly when I'm hosting podcasts. And it's going to be set up very similarly this year as well. So 50 yes or no questions. As really, it's very simple to participate. You kind of see what is offered here, these different questions, and all you have to do is answer yes or no. It doesn't take much knowledge. It could take some knowledge, but you could honestly do a flip of a coin if you wanted to answer each question yes or no. So here's how it's going to work. First of all, you're going to visit rhymeswithasia.com/E3 contest. Then you're going to see those questions. You're going to copy paste into an email, send that and your answers to powerswitchpod@gmail.com. And so our big prediction show, E3 2017, we're going to kind of go over each of these in more in depth, kind of, right before E3. And also you'll give your big boss predictions, your Kiefer predictions. It's very fun if you've listened to shows like that I've hosted in the past, but that'll be on Saturday, June 3rd. Now, normally we have it right before E3, but the way E3 is shifted around, EA is right on the 10th, so we got to go the week before, Saturday, June 3rd at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, so you won't want to miss that. However, mixing up a bit from contests in the past that I've hosted, there is a bit of a disadvantage to submitting your answers early. And you have a bit of an advantage for submitting late because things can change in the weeks leading up. Things can be revealed. Things can be hinted at. So that may give you a bit of an advantage if you submit your question late. However, we're changing that a bit this year. And so what do I mean? So we'll have 3 weeks before that prediction show. So if you submit it in the 3rd week out, let's say, and that'll be from May 14th through 20th, you will get 5 bonus points. If you submit from May 20th to 27th, the 2nd week out, you'll get 3 bonus points. And 1 week out from our prediction show, if you submit then, you won't get any bonus points, but you'll get the advantage of waiting that extra time to maybe increase your chances of having the highest point total by the end of it all. And we'll be able to tally it up by the end of E3. It's a whole lot of fun if you haven't done it. It's also it's very easy to participate. The winner, once it's all said and done, will be invited onto this show to join me as a co-host for the episode to talk about things post E3 once everything is concluded. So that'll be kind of, I guess, the reward there. But let's get to the 50 E3 2017 yes or no questions. Now, it's important to note the answer of yes or no will be decided at the end of E3 2017. Now, some of these may say during the conference, but overall, the idea is, will this happen by the end of E3 2017, yes or no? Let's get to it. We start with 10 questions from Microsoft. Will Project Scorpio receive both its final name and its specific release date? Will the price of Project Scorpio be announced as less than $551? Will a new Halo game or remake, not an expansion or DLC, be revealed? Will 2 of the following 3, Crackdown 3, Sea of Thieves, or State of Decay 2, receive specific release dates? Will a racing game specifically titled Forza Motorsport 7 be announced? Will a brand new first-party intellectual property from Microsoft be announced? Will Cuphead or Below have a new trailer shown during the conference? Will Minecraft have its own dedicated segment during the conference? Will virtual or augmented reality be mentioned during the conference? And will Phil Spencer change his lowest layered shirt during the conference? Up next, 10 questions for Sony. Will new PlayStation hardware, be it a console, a handheld, or VR 2.0, be announced? Will God of War receive a 2017 release window? Will gameplay footage of Spider-Man be shown? Will The Last of Us Part 2 have a trailer or demo shown during the conference? Will Sucker Punch reveal their new PS4 game? Will more than one PlayStation VR game that is not an add-on experience to another title receive a trailer during the conference? Will Bloodborne 2 be announced? Will Red Dead Redemption 2 have a trailer or demo shown during the conference? Will a new celebrity be confirmed to appear in Death Stranding? And will the phrase US dollars be said at any time during the conference? Now, 10 questions for Nintendo. Will 2 of the following 3, Super Smash Bros., Super Mario Maker, or Xenoblade Chronicles X, have Switch ports confirmed? Will a new Pokémon game be announced exclusively for Switch? Will an Animal Crossing or an F-Zero game be revealed for Switch? Will a new series of Amiibo be revealed? Will Mother 3 be announced for Switch? Will the price of Switch's online service be announced as less than $26 annually? Will GameCube Virtual Console plans be announced? Will more than 3 new games for 3DS be revealed during the spotlight? Will a Nintendo mobile game be mentioned during the spotlight? And will the phrase "up until now" be said during the spotlight? Now here are 10 questions about third parties. Will we see new video footage of Final Fantasy VII Remake or Kingdom Hearts 3? Will both Call of Duty World War II and Destiny 2 have gameplay demos featured during a conference? Will more than one celebrity be brought on stage during EA's conference? Will Visceral Games' Amy Hennig-directed Star Wars game receive an official title? Will a new Assassin's Creed game set in ancient Egypt be revealed? Will Ubisoft reveal a sequel to either Rayman, Splinter Cell, or Far Cry? Will Bethesda reveal a sequel to either Wolfenstein or The Evil Within? Will someone demonstrate Doom VR or Fallout 4 VR while wearing a head-mounted display on stage during Bethesda's conference? Will Konami announce a new console game? Will a game series which had its last title release over 10 years ago receive a new installment? And finally, 10 games that could be revealed. These are hopes and dreams. Either Half-Life 3, Portal 3, or Left 4 Dead 3. Metroid for Switch. Devil May Cry 5. The Elder Scrolls 6. The Sims 5. Borderlands 3. Cyberpunk 2077. Deep Down, Agent, and Beyond Good and Evil 2. To determine tiebreakers this year, please submit a guess of how many Switch mentions will be in the Nintendo Spotlight. That is, how many times Switch will be said. Anyway, I know that's a lot to go through, so starting May 14th, this Sunday, please visit rhymeswithasia.com/E3 contest and submit your entries to powerswitchpod@gmail.com. You get the bonus this year of 3 weeks out, it's 5 bonus points. 2 weeks out, it's 3 bonus points. And 1 week out of our big call-in show on Sunday, June 3rd, it's going to be no bonus points. Gives you a bit of a little more gamesmanship there. So looking forward to having you submit and have a lot of fun with this E3 2017 contest. So that's what I have to say. When we come back, we'll get to the callers. What do you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts, but you can also bring up whatever gaming topic you'd like to discuss. And don't forget, you can also reply to what another caller had to say as well. That's all when we come back here on the Power Switch. Welcome back to the Power Switch. We've got people here lined up, ready to call in, whether it's talking about our E3 yes or no questions or E3 as a whole. Looking forward to hearing what everyone has to say. Joining us from Michigan, Scott, welcome back to the Power Switch.
Hey, Pete, how's it going?
Pretty good. How are you?
Man, I'm just mentally preparing myself already for the craziness that is E3 in a couple weeks.
Oh gosh, absolutely. And you've joined me on past E3s, and we live in relative close proximity to each other. Looking forward to doing that again this year with your website, dashingnerds.com. So that will be...
Yeah, we'll have some joint goodness there.
Absolutely. So that should be fun. What did you want to talk about today?
Thinking of E3, you and I, this is what, our 7th or 8th E3 we'll be doing?
Gosh, it's when you put it that way, it's something like that, yeah.
It's something like that. I mean, we've it's been some crazy times. I mean, I remember watching the announcement for Kingdom Hearts 3, the initial big thing with the pre-rendered trailer. I remember the craziness that was that. I remember watching it in your insanely warm apartment.
Yeah, that was I remember that one being the year where Ken Levine was talking about BioShock for Vita and how that never happened. Yeah, whether it was apartments that we didn't want the loud AC, the wall-mounted AC to run because it would be too loud, and we were live streaming reactions back then. I mean, yeah, gosh, I totally remember the Kingdom Hearts 3 reaction. That was a good time. We were losing our minds while my brother was there. It's like, oh, okay, it's Kingdom Hearts 3. We're like, but it's Kingdom Hearts 3.
Yeah, Mark was so over it and nonchalant about the whole thing. It was
there have been a lot of good ones for sure.
There have been. Well, just a couple of years ago with the Final Fantasy VII announcement, I mean, occasionally I'll go back and watch some of our reactions to that, to Shenmue, to Last Guardian, to PlayStation 4 announcing that it's going to let your friends borrow games. I remember that we were having a blast for that one, watching that, and the reaction to Breath of the Wild.
Oh, man.
And it's just, we go back a ways with this E3 stuff. We've been doing this a while.
We do, and it kind of shows, the magic of the time. I mean, some people, if you're new to the video game scene and you're listening to this podcast, and like, what's so special about E3? And you may hear like, oh, well, E3's dying. It's not as good as it once was. E3 is still special because it's where everyone gathers, where the industry gathers. Mm-hmm. Many people go on stage to talk about their plans for the year and beyond. And Nintendo does their own thing now with digital events, and that's kind of been the way for 4 years or so, whatever have you. But when people make a big theatrical production on stage, like, that says something. Like, when there's stake in the game and there are memories that are made forever. I mean, you can even talk to some of the more baffling moments, whether
Mr. Caffeine at Ubisoft.
Mr. Caffeine. Just all that. Or, at Microsoft when, things didn't have sound. Or was it EA? One of them, just didn't have sound and you were hearing hot mics behind the stage.
Yeah.
Or there's so many just odd gaffes. I mean, Sony had
Battlefield, it was, I want to say Battlefield 4's video that didn't have audio. And then they started walking back.
Yeah, the guy was kind of stranded on stage. Yeah. So
that cluster.
Yeah. Or it's weird things with Ubisoft. Like Jason Derulo is suddenly putting out a concert and like for Just Dance. Okay, so it's a moment where like the eyes are on the video game world, whether it's not just game fans overall. But, when they say this is where the mainstream media tunes in, I mean, you see, most of the time big product announcements made at E3. It's an important time. And yeah, you have your Gamescoms, sometimes your Tokyo Game Shows. I mean, you have PlayStation Experience in December. Those are fine, but it's trying to capture the kind of attention, the feeling.
Special.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
There's something special, a gravitas to E3 that the others are fantastic, but it's just not E3.
Like everyone really comes to play at E3. That's the thing. Like you kind of have, you mentioned in 2013 where you had kind of the hedging the bets, the competition of what the final features of Xbox One and PlayStation 4 would be. And you could argue that, maybe PlayStation made some changes last minute after they saw what Microsoft did, several hours before. There are some very fond memories with E3. And, I think it's going to be exciting this year because for Microsoft, they have the next step forward. They're trying to see how do they take Windows 10, kind of implement it as an overall platform. They just recently had a Build 2017 sort of presentation where they're talking about how to step forward with, implementing Xbox into what they do overall. I mean, with Scorpio, I mean, what do they call it? What will the price be? What's the logic there? With Sony, it's, do they, continue to pump out the games? They have announced a lot of stuff way in advance, but can they deliver on, what is coming next? What's for 2017? Do they have anything more that's new to show? What are the third-party partnerships? What's that like? And for Nintendo, I mean, it's obvious. It's Nintendo Switch. What else do you have besides, You have Splatoon 2, you have ARMS, you have Super Mario Odyssey. Like, what is beyond? I know their spotlight is 2017, but what's beyond? And then you throw in the third parties. To think Bethesda would continue to be a player. EA and Ubisoft, of course, continue to do that. What is the strategy behind EA being on Saturday? So there's a lot to pay attention to if you're a game fan. If you listen to this kind of podcast, there's enough intrigue there. It's really exciting, but you're right. I mean, to go back to E3's past, like there have been some fun moments.
Fun and just hilarious moments to look at and laugh at and then just make fun of. Like Skittles, the tiger.
I love Skittles. You. I love you, Skittles.
With fist bump and looking at the bottom of an Xbox avatar's foot. And
a lot of those Connect based, certainly. But yeah, right. I mean, that was part of the fun.
Nintendo opening up with the Zelda concert.
Oh, man.
That gave me goosebumps. I remember that, and it's
well. Then you
like that.
You look at Sony last year with opening with the God of War concert. I mean, what is it with live concerts? Like, I think more need to go in that direction. Open with a live pit orchestra, kind of get that going. It'll be interesting to see kind of strategies also play into it. I mean, you talk about Sony last year with just literally they had a shorter show than years past, but it was because they were going trailer, and just like the back to back, the constant pacing. Like, I think that's what a lot of people want. They don't want the sluggish points of years past with on stage demos that may fail. I mean, you think of Wonderbook. Wonderbook was dreadful. You may think long past are we with the times of talking to investors and let's go through a PowerPoint of our sales numbers and pitch it that way. We're long past that point, I think, especially with age of live streaming and everyone paying attention to the Twitter responses and all. There's so much to consider, and I think that's part of the fun of doing not only this contest of just kind of marking where we are a month out, kind of giving like a semblance of predictions, like could be yes, could be no. But also, as you mentioned, when we've recorded our reactions in years past, and I hope to do that, not necessarily live. We want to do, certainly live post-show podcasts with everyone, call in, this kind of format. That would certainly be fun after each show, except PC, let's be honest. And
maybe PlayStation. PlayStation might be the next morning.
Yeah, we'll see.
Usually Sony is a little late.
Yeah.
We'll see. We might be super hyped up. Who knows? Sony has gotten us giddy before in the years past.
That's entirely possible. Yeah. But but also recording our reactions during, and I think I want to do that again this year to kind of stitch together kind of like the best of sort of like a little montage of highlights there, because looking back to that 2015 show when it was the year of dreams for Sony, and you had the Shenmue and you had Final Fantasy VII, like those were exciting, and especially as you said to look back on.
It's the closest I ever get, like the announcements like that, to feeling how I felt when I was a little kid on like Christmas morning. Just the surprise and the wonder, and it's like, oh my God, did that really happen? And it's just fantastic, and I'm so excited, and it'll be nice not to have one insane day this year like Mondays have been previously, where it's literally like 20 hours nonstop. Spread it out a little bit. That will be nice. And it's going to be interesting with this whole Coliseum thing with Jeff Keighley, with that bringing that in. How's that going to? I mean, I think Square has said that they're going to be doing like a little conference or a little discussion there. A bunch of developers. So it's like, what's going to come out of there?
Yeah, like, is that where we see Kingdom Hearts 3 this year? Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly possible. I think we'll see it at Sony, and then we might get more of an in-depth discussion at the Coliseum kind of thing.
Yeah, that's possible.
I think they would want Kingdom Hearts to be like front stage. Like that would be like a main stage thing they would want to show off. They know they'll have the big audience if they show a new trailer at one of the big three.
Yeah, and that's a good point. I mean, when you think about, how do you spend your time in between the conferences? If you're just watching from home, I mean, if you're not churning out, content or whatever, I mean, whether it's, different things like IGN or GameSpot or something like Kind of Funny, to have those kind of long shows in between. Now you add the element of this year's Coliseum with Jeff Keighley and hosting panels and things like that. So even though it'll be in between conferences, like, once the show kind of starts proper, like you'll have those hours of content just to, if you want to jump back and forth between, this game is being shown off on this stream, but this is over here, and kind of go there, or if you just leave one on and just let it roll. It's an exciting time.
Yeah, I mean, in the past, I know we've had on your main screen, we'll have one conference, but if another's going on, I'll have it on my iPad, or you'll have it on your laptop or something. So it's just so much stuff. It's going to be crazy. In for another ride, man.
Absolutely. And I know it's tough to say, it's a month out, and you don't want to get too excited because there is still that time. But man, it's going to be really good. I can't wait. And this is part of the fun, is kind of stating where we are now, where our thoughts are now with E3, and kind of how it develops over the next few weeks. We'll have that big show, kind of give the last big predictions, and then see where we're at. I wonder how it's going to be different this year, because you have a lot more of sort of independent journalists kind of doing their own reporting, their own digging. So for something like the Mario and Rabbids Kingdom game for Switch, enough sources have reported that it's pretty much a foregone conclusion that will be at E3. It's kind of why I didn't include it in any of the yes or no things. It's it's gonna be there, but yeah, we'll have to see finally the gameplay footage or something like that.
Right.
Yeah, it's gonna be a good year. And
just for all the listeners, be very careful with what you see online right now, because this is we are starting the primo fake rumor leak time. So don't believe everything you see.
Anything and everything can be photoshopped, or in this case, there's not, especially, gosh, when you look at something like Switch, and you can play any video file, MP4, whatever, on Switch. Just get ready for people like, oh, whoa, look what I found. I found this Switch, and it's playing this game, and so
this is a screen from a new Smash Brothers game, or
it'll be tilted and the camera's moving at 100 miles an hour.
What was it, Rayman?
Yeah.
And you'll have also rumors and stuff like that. Incredibly well done Rayman thing that was a couple years back, and
be wary of the detailed conference rundown. That's always a popular one. So just keep your eyes up and kind of trust your instincts. What's real, what's fake. So that's probably the best advice for this contest.
Which company do you think is going to have a hot mic incident first? Before the conference, the practice show hot mic incident. Ooh. Which company do you think is going to do it this year? Because it seems like there's always one. There's always at least one.
Bethesda's got the history, so I'll put the money on that one.
You're thinking Bethesda?
Yeah.
I'm thinking Microsoft.
That's interesting. Because they haven't done it at that earlier time slot. Maybe that's a good guess.
I'm thinking Microsoft.
All right, so Scott, well, thanks for calling in. Really appreciate the time. You can find you on Twitter at SolidSnake120. Over at dashingnerds.com is your website there. Anything you'd like to plug in particular?
The only thing I can really think of to plug is RPG Limit Break starts today and goes through part of this week. So if you like RPGs and the speedrun community, it is the biggest RPG-focused speedrunning event on Twitch. So twitch.tv/RPG Limit Break. Really fun to watch. It's a nice thing to have up in the background. So that's what I'm going to be watching for the next few days.
Very cool. Well, Scott, thanks so much for your time. Looking forward to having you here for E3. Until then, we'll stay excited and keep our ears glued to the ground.
You know it. Thanks for having me on again, Pete.
No problem. Have a good one.
You too.
Joining us from Illinois, Video Game Guru 64. Welcome back to the PowerSwitch.
Hello, nice to be back.
Certainly. Thank you for calling in. What would you like to talk about today?
Nintendo's E3, I guess.
Okay, we can certainly talk about that, yeah.
About a new F-Zero, 2 new Metroid titles, Mario and Rabbids. It's crazy.
I don't want you to get your hopes up too much. When you're asking for 2 Metroid titles, I think let's just start with one.
I know. That's just the rumor. Anybody listening, don't get your hopes up.
Yeah, jeez. See, I wonder with F-Zero, and I throw it in the question because Animal Crossing makes sense. Is it the year for it? I'm not sure. It may be, it's a next year kind of thing. They announce it next year. F-Zero I throw in because it's kind of just thrown in along with Metroid as one of those forgotten franchises. I wonder if how does Fast RMX sort of play in it? Does Nintendo see it as a, yeah, that'll do for that crowd? Or do they see any sort of success with it and say, well, we need F-Zero now back? I mean, I wonder. So that's kind of where that question is laid there.
I hope that if they do announce the new F-Zero game, that Shinin, that they are working on it.
Yeah, that'd be smart. Don't necessarily take up too much Nintendo studio space, time, resources. Yeah, give it to the people who love to work on it. I mean, that would be smart. Even if it's just like a teaser, like we've just started and it won't be ready until 2018. Like that would get people excited for sure. Now, as far as Metroid goes, do you think that's like a retro project? Probably.
It's most certainly, because we haven't heard from them since Donkey Kong 3. So,
and it's interesting. But there's the rumor where the composer for what was Deus Ex or whatever, like he's now working for Retro, and he's a big Metroid fan. So Nintendo Reddit, Nintendo Gaff, they're trying to put things together, see what might be. It's also been an interesting sort of week for Nintendo Gaff, as it were, because people were trying to look at the Nintendo Direct page, and like the 2016 Pokemon Direct has like disappeared offline, is taken offline. The launch trailer for Sun and Moon, not the launch trailer, the reveal trailer for Sun and Moon, taken offline for some reason, like gone from YouTube. So people were trying to piece together, like, is there a Nintendo Direct that is going to happen before E3 somehow? And they were trying to piece it together, like, oh, it'd be 1 week, and it didn't pan out. So I think out of any company, a Nintendo fan likes to speculate and just get their hopes up so much. And yeah, I think of course it's a huge E3 for Nintendo, but you can't be asking for too much here, I don't think.
I like to be pessimistic towards Nintendo around this time. Like, don't be too optimistic and say, oh, we could have this and we could have this and we could have this. No, just relax. Don't be too optimistic, because you will have your dreams crushed.
Yeah, and I think Nintendo is going to show some great things, but I think it's just going to be like, 2 big surprises at most. And just kind of looking through the questions again, I mean, like, is this the year for something like Mother 3? Is that going to be and it's available now kind of thing? Like, is this the year finally for that? I mean, after, the year off in between, we had the Earthbound Beginnings, and, the year before it was Earthbound on eShop. Like, is this the year for that? Does that count as a big surprise? Some of these big Switch ports, is it, Super Smash Brothers DX Director's Cut? Is it, Super Smash Brothers Switch? Like, how much content are we getting in that? Is it going to be everything from Wii U and 3DS together, plus a little bit more, a couple new characters? Like, people can speculate, and I think we'll have a couple really nice surprises, I'm sure. But yeah, it's to say that like, oh, it's everything. And also, I think another big question, just to keep thinking about Nintendo at E3, like, what format do they have this spotlight in? Is it a more traditional Direct that we've seen? What have they learned from this new one that sees the rundown? Like, I want to be surprised. I don't want to see things laid out for an E3 press conference. I want to be just genuinely shocked.
It's announced that it's going to be a spotlight and not a digital event. Maybe that's more focused towards the games, and 1 game, 2 games, 3 games. It's keep going on games and don't talk about whatever other stuff that's in between.
Yeah.
Like Sony last year.
Yeah, I hope that's the case. I think they know what they have with the live streams after the fact. That's where you do the deep dives. That's where you get the features and have the directors talking, whether it's through translation or whatever. Like, that's where you kind of go a little bit more in depth there. I think they kind of learned, hopefully, I would imagine, from the indie showcase. Like, that was a very back-to-back sort of presentation that worked very well for them, because it really showed the breadth of what they had to offer. And I hope that's, you're right, I think that's hopefully what they should show this year.
So I was going to say that I predict that Super Mario Odyssey, Xenoblade Chronicles 2, and Fire Emblem Warriors are all gonna come out this year.
It's a bold prediction. I hope you're right for the sake of the software library for Nintendo Switch, just to keep kind of that cadence of games going. My one worry with that is Xenoblade Chronicles 2, because it really depends on how the localization process goes. If they're finishing up the music right now, and I have no idea like how far along they are in the other steps of the process. But if like the localization of the script takes a long time, like that could easily switch, or not switch, but slide back and be kind of an early 2018 game. Like that'd be my one worry. I think Fire Emblem Warriors, it's easy to churn out those Musos. That should be fine. Mario Odyssey, I bet, has been done for a long, long time. So I'm sure that'll hit at the perfect moment this holiday.
I was thinking Chronicles 2 was, didn't they say it's like summer or something? So maybe it won't hit summer, but it will hit fall or winter.
Possible. I'm just a little skeptical. I mean, granted, last year was a big time for shifting a lot of games to the next year, and we haven't seen that, so far yet. I guess I'm more just applying that kind of trend the next year and say, well, if there's any Nintendo game, what would it be? But yeah, if they're all currently confirmed for different times in 2017, I'm just more basing that Mario has to be this fall. I'm sure it's been done for quite some time. It should be pretty easy.
It's probably going to hit that Black Friday slot.
Yeah, I would imagine that would be the case. That would make sense for Mario. It would be great to have Xenoblade Chronicles 2 this year. It's just interesting when you think of, the rumors, and I threw it in the question there of, there's been talk of, does Xenoblade Chronicles X get a port to Switch? And that's going to be the talk for, how many of the great Wii U games do you move over to Switch? Is X one of them? Is it another team working on a port? Is something like, Tantalus, I think is his name, or like, is it some team like that working on that? So then, where do they put that? Like, how much Xenoblade is too much Xenoblade? So
I highly doubt it. If it's hitting this year, I don't think so. But 2 years out, maybe 3, you could see it on the Switch, but I don't think it's gonna hit this year. And Super Mario Maker, I could see that happening, but it's just too many ports.
I think that one, it's got to be a game they get right, and then take their time to get it exactly how they want it. I think it's one you need to have on the Switch, to be honest, because lacking in features on 3DS, and I think that really hurt the sales there. But to have the kind of vision that they want, but then play it anywhere, like that'd be perfect on Switch.
Then Super Smash Bros. I could see that happening but I really want a new game. But it doesn't have to be like all new features, everything. It could just be all the characters from Smash 4 and add in a couple new characters and that stuff.
Yeah, I really wouldn't get your hopes up for a new game. I think, Sakurai is done for Smash for a while, if not forever. It'll take years to make a new one under a different team, because he was just a wizard at churning those things out, and making it was just in his vision. I think, especially with a growing Smash 4 tournament scene, if you want people to move over to a more definitive edition, that would be the way to go on Switch. Make it a kind of best of Smash 4. Get some of the 3DS modes in there, some of all of that mixed in there. I think the really interesting thing is, like, do they add a couple characters? 1, 2. I wouldn't say 3 or anything like that, but make it a game as a service sort of thing. If you want to keep adding extra DLC over time as you stall and wait for a new game, I'd say maybe that's fine, but I don't see that happening either. But you need to kind of continue that scene on a new platform that they are trying to use more for esports.
Gotta have that Wolf and Ice Climbers back.
Yeah, it's Ice Climbers has to be a shoo-in. You'd imagine that they'll take the work that has been done. And then I don't think it would be Wolf. I think, if I had to guess, follow the trends of brands. Inkling would make a whole lot of sense.
That would totally make sense.
Yeah.
I could even imagine the trailer, like the Inkling, the me Inkling costume transforms into an Inkling character.
Yeah, maybe. That's entirely possible. It is certainly fun to kind of speculate on Nintendo in particular. There is so much that can be done with all their different properties, all of their nostalgia, and that's not even touching on things like GameCube Virtual Console and things like that. So certainly a lot of fun.
I also predict that Mother 3 and GameCube Virtual Console will be at this E3. So
I hope you're right. I think it would go a long way to start to flesh out, not only for those that have been waiting for Mother 3 for a long time, but GameCube Virtual Console is something to get pretty excited about. I mean, the idea of playing those kind of games on the go is another option. They got to figure out what they do with the tech, what they do with the analog triggers. Maybe that's a reason why it doesn't happen, or they still need more time to figure it out. But yeah.
And if they could have like a feature that unlocks the GameCube adapter, have that, and you can plug it into your Switch, and you can play it like that. Yes,
you're right. That would be an easy thing to patch through USB. However, it would be an issue of how do you solve the portable problem. Is it an answer of do you do you add Joy-Cons that have their GameCube purple colors and they have specific springy triggers? I mean, we'll see. Well, Video Game Guru 64, thank you so much for calling in, giving some Nintendo insights, some thoughts there. It should be an exciting month leading up to E3. We can find you on Twitter at Video Game Guru 64 and other places across the internet. Anything you'd like to plug?
If you are a fan of Fire Emblem, there's a new Fire Emblem game this Friday. Go get it. It's Fire Emblem Echoes Shadows of Valentia. It has full voice acting. It should be good. It should not be good if you're starting out with Fire Emblem, but if you're a Fire Emblem fan already, it should be good.
I would still have to get through Fates myself. I know it's not necessary to play, but like I'm still backed up on that end for Fire Emblem. So but yeah, check out Fire Emblem Echo Shadows of Valentia for sure.
I feel like not a lot of people know that it's coming out this week, so getting the word out there.
Yeah, it's very, very quickly on the 19th here in May. Yeah, for sure. Well, thanks so much for calling in. Really appreciate the time.
Yep.
And joining us from New Jersey, Matt, welcome back to the PowerSwitch.
Hey, what's up?
Hey, how are you?
Doing well. If I could just follow up on Fire Emblem real quick, you really don't need to play Fates that bad.
I mean, it's I get that it's not critical, but it's like I feel bad. Like I got the nice $80 all on one cart sort of thing, and it's just like, no, I'm just gonna move on to the next Fire Emblem, which it's Gaiden. It's gonna be different, I know. But
I got that same cart, and I just cannot bring myself to keep playing the game. It's got problems.
Yeah. I wonder how Nintendo's kind of looked back on that. Like they tried the whole Pokemon thing that they're now also tried with Yokai Watch, and it's like I wonder how that's paid off for them. What did they learn from that? What the engagement was? It would be interesting to hear sometime.
It doesn't help that the story was very poorly received, not only in America but also in Japan. It was widely criticized as very badly written.
Well, they got a lot of characters out of it, and I know on one of the past shows you mentioned about Fire Emblem Heroes, kind of switch to talk to the mobile game a little bit, but they have a new contest sort of out now, the new voting. Yes. I know you talked about that on a past show and like how they could fix that, and something's different this time around, isn't it?
Yes, it remains to be seen how well it works because we are literally in the first round right now. But they've set it up now so that when one of the losing teams is at a disadvantage, we haven't quite figured out what defines a disadvantage yet, then all of their points will be worth triple.
Oh, interesting.
Which has not only made the matches much closer, but also has changed like that sort of metagaming strategy of maximizing your own personal points, because now it's best to only put in points when you're in that ×3, because that's not only the points that it counts towards the team's points, that's also your own personal points. So I'm like sitting on all these flags that I don't want to put in because my team is not at ×3, and it hasn't been for hours. And there's only 7 hours left in the first round, and I'm just really hoping we get another ×3 so I can blow all my flags at once.
The question is, does Tharja get eliminated?
Based on the current scores, she's definitely not going out in the first round. Okay. But there was actually a point where Lynn's team was beating Tharja.
I do remember seeing
So-
that point, or at least it was really close. But yeah, hopefully, whatever they've done that, to pay off. So it's just kind of a callback to one of your past segments on this show. It kind of reminded me seeing a little bit of research there. But what did you primarily want to talk about today?
To kind of continue the discussion of Nintendo at E3.
Of course, yeah.
I think that because of the position that Nintendo is in with what the Wii U was doing before and what they're trying to do with the Switch, they're in an interesting position where they need to have one of those like outrageously amazing E3 years. Like, I think that's the bare minimum of what they can afford to get away with right now, because the Switch, for as great as the system itself is, still has so few games. I would say that the only two must-have games on it right now are Breath of the Wild and Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, both of which are also on Wii U. So the big problem with this premier system that they have right now is that there's not a hugely compelling reason for anyone to get it. And I've had the theory in the past, I don't know if I ever talked about it on this show, that Nintendo sort of put the Switch out there as a soft pre-launch for Breath of the Wild, Mario Kart, Splatoon 2, and then hopefully in the holiday season they'll sort of do the proper grand opening, because that's a thing that like new stores will do with actual grand openings. The store will open for a few weeks, maybe a few months, and then their big grand opening, once they've established a customer base, is when they have the big celebration and it's finally time to start getting everyone. So I think that's what we need to see from Nintendo for the Switch coming up. And I think that this E3 is going to be really make or break. And it's interesting in that, normally we go in saying, temper your expectations. There's probably going to be like one really amazing thing and a couple pretty good things. But I think Nintendo needs a lot of really amazing this time to really, really win over the people that aren't so sure about the Switch, because they've got a really strong start with the Switch already. It's still sold out everywhere, but I cannot see that momentum keeping up unless we get some really good stuff coming. So we need more than just Mario for this holiday season. Xenoblade has to come out this year. I personally really think Fire Emblem Warriors needs to come out this year, although that might just be because it's combining two of the best franchises I've ever played. And I think we need more than just those three, because the biggest sellers for the Switch for the next few months are all competitive multiplayer games. That's the biggest stuff that the Switch has looking up. And if that's not your thing, then what are you going to do with this system? So I think that there's not only things that could be possible for E3, there are things that have to happen for E3 for Nintendo to really, really, to stick the landing on the Switch launch.
And when you talk about those kind of things, it does remind me of one of the questions, talking about Pokemon and whether it is, Pokemon Stars, still the working theorized title. Do they make that exclusive to Switch to try to drive the market, or can they not resist the big 3DS crowd where the Sun and Moon players already are, and they know that they can get those sales? But to get a proper Pokemon game on Nintendo Switch like that will be a big draw, and that keeps people coming. I think your point about a soft launch is pretty spot on. You kind of look at based on how they had the software sort of set up, and how when we talked about it, how it kind of launching half baked. I think that's kind of in that sort of same vein. You're right. It's a huge E3 for Nintendo, and normally you don't put so much stock in it, but it all kind of does in a way go back to the Wii U when you had those very lean years. And you had years of studios working on games. Like, there's got to be something kind of in development. In a way, Sony is an outlier in that you pretty much know what every studio that's kind of under Sony's wings they're working on. Microsoft has to sort out this similar problem this year as well, especially with all the things being canceled and whatnot.
Microsoft, I could have a whole other topic about right now, because it is not healthy for Sony to be so dominant in the industry.
Mm-hmm.
Like, by and far, it is very difficult to argue that Microsoft is competing with Sony whatsoever. But it's not good for the industry to have no real competition going on.
Yeah, I mean, especially when most of the third parties are going Sony's way. I mean, there's talk on some industry insiders that, Microsoft has secured a marketing deal for an unannounced AAA game. And some people are thinking like, well, I mean, is that going to be Assassin's Creed? Because like it's unannounced. But if it's just Assassin's Creed, like okay, well, yeah, you threw some money the Witcher's way, and like, did that really work out for you? So like, I don't know. But yeah, so I think Nintendo, with the years of the lean years in the Wii U cycle, and just, kind of in that transition period, like, there have to be games. Where are they? And they haven't been, urgent to show many Nintendo Directs about them. So, Reggie's been talking up this E3. You got to hope that it's not just, some false words there.
Yeah, when it comes to Nintendo's marketing, I think that their development and their, the path of what they're actually doing with their systems since Iwata's passing has stayed pretty consistent with what they were already going towards. But their marketing, you can see, has drastically changed. I think the Nintendo Directs were an Iwata thing, and we're not seeing them as much now because under the new direction of the company's marketing, they're refocusing it in different ways. And it remains to be seen whether or not that'll really work for them. But they are definitely doing something different now. And the conclusions that we had made as to, like, Nintendo Directs are how they're doing things, this is how they do their marketing, we can't stick to those anymore because they've really changed all of it.
I mean, now you're seeing, Switch commercials on TV for sure. That's for one thing.
Yeah. And in regards to Pokemon, because you brought that up, I think that's another really crucial question, because what a lot of people forget is that Nintendo does not own Pokemon. Mm-hmm. Game Freak and the Pokemon Company are a completely separate entity that they have business deals with Nintendo to only publish Pokemon games on Nintendo systems, but ultimately the Pokemon Company is going to do what's best for them before they're going to do what's best for Nintendo. And we saw that when the 3DS first launched, and it desperately needed a Pokemon game. But Game Freak instead brought Black and White 2 to the original DS.
Yep.
So, there is definitely something going on with the Pokemon franchise, but whether or not that's going to Switch or 3DS is a big question. Nintendo obviously wants it to go to Switch because they need it on Switch, but the Pokemon Company, it's best for their bottom line if it goes to 3DS. So if it's all whether or not Nintendo can convince them.
Very, very true. And if it goes to both, I think then the big question remains, what's the feature set difference? I think it'd be ultimately okay if it's on both. If it's just on 3DS, I think that's a sorely missed opportunity. Especially when, for years, the Pokemon Company has talked about, well, we don't have it on console because it lacks the portable element, and we like the idea of trading and battling and with your friends wherever you go, but that's solved with the Switch. So I think that they're looking at that, processing power that seems, I would imagine, appetizing to them. But if you do put it on both, the question is, what is the difference between the two SKUs? Is there something more on Switch that may lure players to go play on Switch? Because you could argue for Wii U and Switch for Breath of the Wild. I mean, you could say, some performance figures maybe if you wanted that extra resolution, but otherwise the feature set was pretty much the same. So you had people say, oh, well, I'll just play Zelda on Wii U. But if there's that critical feature on Switch, and if it's HD graphics, that could make a world of difference, because the resolution is just huge between Switch and then whether it's new 2DS XL or 3DS, what have you. I mean, it's a vast difference. But
after playing Switch for a couple weeks, it's really easy to forget that the 3DS is still 240p.
Yeah, right, absolutely. And
I've been playing Hyrule Warriors Legends, and it's like, oh boy.
Yeah, that is a big difference. But yeah, the big question will be, what is that one thing to get people to come over to the Switch to buy that version of the game, as opposed to just, well, I have Sun and Moon or both, or whatever have you on 3DS, I might as well get Stars on 3DS as well. So
yeah, and Stars, I don't think it's going to make or break the Switch if it, whether it goes to Switch or 3DS, but I think that's going to be a big factor in how big the Switch will be in the holiday season. And I personally hope that they bring whatever Stars ends up being to the Switch, whether it's an actual third version, which they haven't done in almost 10 years now, or it's a direct sequel like Black and White 2, or whatever it ends up being. I hope that we see it on Switch, because I think that in addition to the fact that we've never gotten a main series Pokemon game above 240p, but also because it's what they need. It's what they have to do. And I hope that Nintendo convinced the Pokemon Company to do that.
Yeah, I know I'll be a big sucker for Pokemon in HD. I just wonder about, the mom buying the game at holiday for their kid, where you need the big numbers in droves there. That'll be a big question. So a question for you, with this E3 for Nintendo then, what is like one game, what are two games maybe that would be like a big surprise announcement for you? I mean, outside of maybe the different predictions that we've seen, like what would be something that would really sell you as like this would be a great E3 announcement for you personally?
That's a tough one. Over the years of Nintendo just totally messing with our expectations and never doing what we expect, I have gotten out of the game of expecting Nintendo to do anything. For me personally, I always get most excited about Nintendo's new IPs, and they've got ARMS coming up, so maybe they might decide one is good enough for the year. But I think the most exciting thing for me would be to see Nintendo come out with a new IP that is a genre that they haven't quite focused in on yet. And I think if they do that, then that's what I'll get most excited about. Because it's easy for everyone to say, I want a new Metroid, I want a new F-Zero. We're always going to want a new Metroid and a new F-Zero. But when they do eventually come, we pretty much know what they're going to be in some fashion. Unless there's another totally drastic change like Metroid Prime was. But Nintendo, whenever they have something brand new, it's always exciting to see like the way that they're handling like a new genre or a new franchise, learning from their competitors, because that's really the only time they do learn from their competitors and do something that they're doing. Whereas their own personal franchises that they already have tend to be less 2017, so to speak. They kind of like stick to their old design philosophies when it comes to those games. So I want to see something new that is really like a modern 2017 Nintendo game. I don't think it will happen because I think that they're more going to be along the lines of we have ARMS, that's our new IP for the year. But that's what I would get most excited about.
Let me throw a third-party curveball your way. What about the chances on something from Blizzard being ported over, whether it's something like a Hearthstone, whether it's something like Overwatch, chances of seeing something like that on the Switch?
I think the most likely would be Hearthstone. The Overwatch team has been asked the question about Switch, and while they haven't dismissed it entirely, they basically said that's not something we're doing right now. But Hearthstone is just a perfect fit for the Switch as well. Hearthstone and Overwatch are the only franchises that Blizzard has that are really doing anything right now. They've always got Warcraft going on, but it's not the new thing that they're actively doing cool things with. Whether or not World of Warcraft could even come to Nintendo Switch, or this strange, bizarro universe where Warcraft 4 gets announced as a Switch exclusive. I don't personally think Blizzard's going to be involved whatsoever, but I think if they do, it's most likely going to be Hearthstone.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about genres that are missing from Switch, and CCG kind of jumps right to mind, and with a kind of like the card game there. I don't know if I would imagine Nintendo making their own CCG IP. That would be kind of crazy. But I think for me personally, one thing, and it's a 3DS game that it boggled my mind how it was only on 3DS. But Mario Sports Superstars was sent out to die on 3DS. Shocked me personally, and because I love those Mario Sports titles, like whether it's golf or it's strikers, baseball, even like tennis. Oh my gosh, Mario Tennis! Like to have so many of those locked on 3DS in a time where like you're launching in the same month as Nintendo Switch. Like how do you not have a Switch port ready? Like I would have bought that game so hard if it were on Switch, but I'm staying away from it on 3DS. So if there was just a dumb little announcement that like, yep, that game we're also bringing it to Switch, like I'd be happy.
That game completely just happened. I didn't even know about it until I saw an advertisement for it like running before a movie in the theaters. Yeah. And that is the only time I have heard anything about it.
I think they whiffed so hard on it because the idea of 5 games in one is so appealing, but to squander it away on that one platform, that's a miss there.
I think it might have been like a game they threw together in a way, because the tennis side of it is literally the Mario 3DS tennis game.
Sure, I mean, yeah, why change it? Yeah,
I feel like it's one of those things that they meant for it to be a lot bigger, but then all of their priorities changed with Switch, and they already had it in the pipeline, so they figured we might as well finish this, but they weren't really invested in it.
I think that's fair enough. Yeah. No, it should be really exciting to see what Nintendo does this year at E3, and I know we'll be all very excited in the month to come for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Matt, we can find you on Twitter at GrimaceDoMenace. Anything you'd like to plug?
Are you familiar with History of Japan? The video.
I certainly am. It's funny you mentioned that the sequel. I had it. The History of the World. I got that lined up as my YouTube video.
History of the entire world, I guess.
Yeah, dude, check that out. I'll mention again at the end of the show. I had it lined up as my YouTube video. I'm glad you mentioned it. It's super well done. Go check out Bill Wirtz.
What a lot of people don't realize is that over the past year since History of Japan, Bill Wirtz has been regularly answering questions on his website, and everyone keeps asking him about this video, and this video has been literally his entire life. If what he's saying online is to be believed, it has been everything for the last 11 months of his life. Every moment of free time that he had went into making this video, and like it took that long because he really was actively working on it, and it was just that big of a project. And he said that 2 months of his life, the only thing he did was research so that he knew what he was doing. And you can tell, like, he is free. He has finally escaped the history of the entire world. And by God, it's History of Japan was one of the best videos I've ever seen. History of the entire world, I guess, is one of the best videos I've ever seen. So this is going up there with like one of the greatest videos on YouTube.
Pretty much, and he's totally earned it too. I mean, looking at the stats right now, we're 3 days after he launched this video, 7.6 million views.
It's unbelievably good. He deserves so much more success than he has, and he doesn't even monetize his videos.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he could have made so much money off of History of Japan and History of the entire world, I guess, and he hasn't. All he has is donations and his Patreon.
It's pretty amazing. Do check it out. I'll give it a plug at the end of the show as well. But that's a good pick. It's a good pick. All right, Matt. Well, thanks for calling in. Appreciate the time. You have a great night.
Thank you, you too. Hopefully next time we'll be able to sort of follow up on the Fire Emblem Heroes Gauntlet.
Oh, absolutely. Sounds great.
See ya.
All right, guys. Thanks for calling in. When we come back, we'll get to some headlines from the past week in a Headline Roundup. You don't want to miss it when we come back here on the Power Switch. Welcome back to the Power Switch. This week's tempo control music is brought to you by Fire Emblem Awakening. You can find a new video game music top 10 list from a specific game's soundtrack every Tuesday over at youtube.com/rhymeswithasia. Now it's time for a Headline Roundup. We start with Square-Enix cutting ties with IO Interactive. These are the developers behind the Hitman series, and after the critical acclaim of Hitman last year, it's kind of shocking to think that Square-Enix is just saying, bye-bye, we're going to try to sell you off. Do we keep the Hitman property? I don't know. You're supposedly developing Season 2, but is that going to go to another publisher? Hard to say. Kind of shocking. Especially when Square Enix reports in their financials that they had, record profits and great sales, but it's possible that Hitman fell shy of Hitman Absolution's sales, and for a much better critically received game, maybe it didn't translate exactly to the money there, and that's really unfortunate. A lot of people loved Hitman. It's a game that I have to really get to, missing from 2016. That's just shocking, though, that a game can have that kind of success that it did last year, and then suddenly the publisher is just letting go of that developer. So hopefully the best over at IO Interactive. Hopefully they're still working hard on a Season 2 for Hitman, and hopefully they get snatched up soon. Hoping for the best for them. Alan Wake is being taken off of Xbox Live and Steam on May 15th, and it's because of music licensing. This is absurd, I think. I mean, could you not patch this out? I wonder what the extent of the music is involved with the game and the licenses that are involved. Now, this is really, showing the troubles in a digital future. As much as we may want to go and embrace a digital future, there's still the benefit of saying, well, if you have an Xbox 360 version of Alan Wake, you have no problem with this. I mean, I guess in the last couple days, the game was like 90% off on Steam in particular. I went and just installed it on a PC. I have no idea if I mean, it's not going to go away necessarily from your library. You'll still, I guess, have it that you bought it, but I don't know if you'll be able to re-download it. So you should be able to go, get it now, download it, save it there if you're really itching to play Alan Wake. But it shouldn't go away from your hard drive if it's installed. I'm not sure if you'll be able to pull from the storefront past May 15th. It just shows the kind of digital future that we live in, and things like music licensing. I mean, it's really unusual. BioWare is shifting up their priorities. They're putting Mass Effect on ice after the underwhelming Andromeda. They're taking that BioWare Montreal team, half of them or so, or at least some of them, are going to EA Motive to continue work on Battlefront 2 for Star Wars there. And the other bit are going to Edmonton, where they are working on BioWare's next big new IP. Apparently it's currently codenamed Dylan. The talk is that it's like a space-like MMO, kind of like a Destiny competitor, if you will. Big details haven't been revealed. These are kind of the insiders. Liam Robertson, I think, was reporting on this one in particular, codenamed Dylan. And the big word with that game is that it got pushed back. It was supposed to be, kind of an end of fiscal year for this year sort of announcement. Maybe we would have seen it at E3, but the talk is it's gotten pushed back maybe towards the end of 2018. So keep an eye on whatever becomes of Dylan and BioWare. I mean, they've done the patches for Mass Effect Andromeda. It's improved that game quite a lot, but it still falls short of what the trilogy was, and I think that's an unfortunate thing. Hopefully it's not too long before that franchise gets de-thawed, or thawed, so to speak, not put on ice there. Halo 6. We had a question about, originally it was going to be, will Halo 6 be revealed at the Microsoft conference, but word comes from 343 Industries that Halo 6 will not be revealed at E3, but they will show a little something regarding the franchise. So question got changed from Halo 6 to a Halo game or a remake, not an expansion, not DLC. So we'll see what this little something is for this year. I think in a really important year for Microsoft to not show Halo at all would be a big mistake. So I wondered what this little something is, but Halo 6 currently generally planned for the end of 2018. If E3 2018 is the first time we see something like that for Halo 6, the next big installment, I wonder if that's going to be a mistake. So interesting that Microsoft comes out and says that, or 343 rather. Interesting that that's being brought up so far in advance of E3, almost 1 month. Speaking of another rumored game, Assassin's Creed Origins, this actually goes back to Liam Robertson as well, reporting for another website, saying that Assassin's Creed will be named Origins for this time around, that it will take place in ancient Egypt. A screenshot is kind of leaked in advance. Granted, again, this is all rumor, so we have the question about, will the next Assassin's Creed be set in ancient Egypt? You can take the rumor for what you will. If you believe the reporting in the past, if you believe the screenshot, that could be fake, could be real. Talk of it being a prequel, again with possibly two assassins. Boats would come back. It seems pretty exciting. If that's what indeed the case is for this Assassin's Creed game, count me in. I'd be really excited for sure. And finally, Project Rap Rabbit is a new project from the creators of Parappa the Rappa and Gitaru Man, merging, fusing together, creating this new project to bring the rhythm game adventure kind of back into play, kind of that old sort of game style that we've seen missing for quite some time. So Project Rat Rabbit there, not too much talk, it's just a kind of teaser trailer out there, but that is a thing. And that'll do it for this episode of The Power Switch. We are hosted by RhymesWithAsia.com, and we're on YouTube and Twitch at Rhymes with Asia. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at The Power Switch. And you can email us any questions, concerns, comments, or opportunities at powerswitchpod@gmail.com. Also the place where you can submit for our E3 2017 Yes or No contest, powerswitchpod@gmail.com, by first checking out the questions over at rhymeswithasia.com/E3 contest. You can subscribe to The Power Switch on podcast services such as iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher, and if you could be so kind as to leave a review, that would really help as well. But most importantly, to participate in future episodes, you should join our community on Discord by visiting rhymeswithasia.com/call. Now, it's a small but growing community, and in these early months of the show, it'll be easier than ever to have your voice heard on this podcast. A YouTube video to watch, Matt already mentioned it. It's Bill Wurtz, Wurtz, with History of the World, I Guess. He's the guy who made History of Japan, another fantastic YouTube video if you have not watched, but being very informative in a quick, snappy, funny way. It's really a style that's only his own, and you have to check it out. So yeah, Saturdays at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. We got to get back into having guests on the show. Got a couple planned lined up, hopefully, so we'll get that going. Before E3 2017, we'll have Scott here. We'll talk some more about our plans. We'll have post shows for each of the conferences, again, except for PC, and we'll have people be able to call in there. If you win the contest for E3 2017, you'll get to be on the overall post show the week after E3 2017. So it should be a good time. Stay tuned to the Discord channel as everything develops here. And regardless, whether it's live or on your own time, I look forward to you joining us for our next episode. With that, I'm Peter Spezia. Until next time, switch up, call in, game on.